one time I was reflecting about life with a friend, and then this friend asked me, what would life look like for you if it was perfect, or what would the best life look like for you? And I said, it would look like how it is now, where I could just stare blankly in the wall and find something to smile about. And I'm not smiling because things are perfect, but I mean, I feel the perfect kind of life is one where things aren't perfect, but still, there's something about every single thing around you that just makes you fall in love with life more.
This episode is brought to you by We the Curators.
Hello, madam. Okay, so apparently this is a long overdue meeting, right? And I just wanted to take advantage of this very fruitful conversation as usual, and just to include it as one of the episodes for my key takeaways.
Yeah, it's supposed to be coffee session, but
Yes, coffee session, but we wanted to extend the key takeaway from this session to this podcast. So hi everyone, my name is Mikey, and welcome to the 5th episode of my key takeaways. Okay, so madam, when we were conceptualizing about my key takeaways, a lot of the images or conversations that we have unpacked were actually related to travel, to our involvement to Global Shippers community. And it's funny because when we were thinking about the guest as well, they were saying that this very era of mine is something that a lot of you have experienced as well. And I'm happy to say naman na I've been trying to be in your footsteps. Pero
feel old.
But there's also this joke na gugustuhin ko ba who are you guys as of this moment? We will see. But this is also to add that I have a favorite conversation with you, if you may remember. And
I have a hunch.
Sige, trying to guess which one.
The lotion.
Yes. Yeah, so I keep telling people that I had this very experience before that when I was young, I feel like, no, when you wanted to achieve something or when we decide on something, we really have to meet the expectations, we really have to do it on schedule. Not until you told me about that very incident wherein sometimes there are really circumstances that won't go as planned, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you failed. And sometimes you also have to address other aspects of your life and the process of achieving your other goals, and that includes the very example that you mentioned, even just putting on lotion, because I don't at that age I don't feel like that was my priority then. So those are my context as to why I feel like this very conversation is so worthy to be a part of the podcast, just because our conversations always have a key takeaway. So this is a long overdue meetup, and I'm so excited to have this conversation, which will focus a lot more on our shared love for travel.
I love it.
For free travel also. It's one of the questions that came out of our para survey, or some of the topics that the people wanted to hear from this podcast. And at the same time, you being such a high achiever, an accomplished woman as yourself, I know that puts you a lot of pressure, but I would personally vouch that you are, okay? And a lot of our questions would really gear towards that later on, okay? So, ano ba? As of this moment, how would you usually introduce yourself in a formal setup muna? And then later on, you could also tell me if you happen to know a person just now, how would you also introduce yourself?
Oh, okay. So it's a very interesting question because it's something that that has always been a challenge answering for me. Because there was a point in my life where every time people would ask me, so what do you do? I would even ask them, why? What do you do? So I could relate it to what you do. Because at one point I was just so many different. I was just so many people. I mean, I was just all these different kinds of people depending on who who was in front of me. And I feel like at this point, it's there was just, it was a result of a phase where I was constantly chasing for something new to do, or if I was chasing for a new skill to learn, or I was chasing for, another new career that I thought would give me satisfaction, would give me that sense of purpose. But right now, I feel like I'm currently at a stage in my life where I prefer to just be known as Hera. I am a mom who has a 14-year-old girl. And right now I'm is exactly where we are now. It's an empty canvas for me. So it feels like I want to live a life where I don't have to introduce myself, not from a place of ego. Na I don't have to introduce. You know how we always say, na live a life, live your life in such a way you don't have to introduce yourself anymore. I really want to live my life in a way where you don't have to really like put so much importance with what you do or what you achieve.
Yeah.
Just because the people in front of you just really cares for who you are and genuinely wants to be with who you are at this point in time. So I'm just Hera for now.
Listening to that very answer, I did remember the very first time that I met you at the Global Shippers Community Circle. You were asked what exactly you're doing, and I remember you saying na, I'm just a bum. You had that era.
Yes. I had a bum. Yeah, I love that stage
And-
of my life.
And see, we're just like few minutes to the podcast, and I really like the emphasis on, you were right that I think there was a phase, or we were in this generation wherein we are in this era that we associate ourselves to the things that we do, to our jobs, to our accomplishments, that sometimes we often forget to ask ourselves, like, without the things that you do or with these titles and labels, who are we really? And you were saying that how you introduce yourself right now this is the kind of the identity that is important to you, and it doesn't necessarily have to be your career.
Yeah, like right now, it's like, one time I was reflecting about life with a friend, and then this friend asked me, what would life look like for you if it was perfect, or what would the best life look like for you? And I said, it would look like how it is now, where I could just stare blankly in the wall and find something to smile about. And I'm not smiling because things are perfect, but I mean, I feel the perfect kind of life is one where things aren't perfect, but still, there's something about every single thing around you that just makes you fall in love with life more. And I didn't even know that something like this exists. And I think that's what happens when you also had to go through certain things. You know what they say, you have to go deep for you to crawl out of it. You have to crawl out of the hole. So, yeah, I'm going to stop right
But yeah, I think not everyone get to appreciate such mindset or such response. But I'd like to say that for a person to be able to say that, you said it just now, you have to have, you've probably had a lot of experiences in the past. And not only like experiences like in your workplace, in your organizations, but a lot of it is really going outside of your own culture. And a lot of this exploration you were able to get from traveling outside of the country, seeing culture from Europe, from America, right? And so I specifically wanted to answer this question with you, okay? A lot of like the Gen Zs who are saying that it's so difficult to live in this generation, wherein economy-wise, it's so difficult to even survive like your day-to-day life. How much more to have a life wherein you get to travel for both leisure and also for self-discovery. So I wanted you to answer the question based on your experiences for like a decade, I believe. You had an era wherein you've been traveling a lot, and without mentioning that those travels are actually, a lot of them are actually free. So how to see the world free?
Okay, I think although you mentioned that it's a phase it's a phase I had for the last 10 years. I feel like that part of me has always been there since I was younger. I lived in a lower middle income household growing up, and we didn't have, traveling isn't something that's part of people's like, we don't think in terms of when we're going to travel or where we're going to travel or when we're going to travel next before, because the only thing you could think about is how can we, like, the only thing parents in that, in that status before could think about was how they're going to send their kids to school. So back then, we've never really had an idea of we didn't even know that that's possible for us. But when I was younger, I started getting sent to quiz bees or like inter-school competitions when I was when I was in elementary and high school. And I remember there was this competition called the Young Scientist Quiz, where where I was sent to Cebu, and I thought that was one of those like moments where I felt like, oh, so this is possible. I mean, on one end, I mean, I loved it because I get to meet people, and I also had to, there was just that part of me who felt like, again, going back to labels and going back to identity. A lot of my, like a big part of my identity during that time was leaning towards all the stuff that I've achieved. So that was one reason behind it. But at the same time, when I realized that, oh, so this could also get me to places, it allowed me to work harder. So over the years, the opportunities evolved. It was not just, it's not like I did that just to travel. I did that because I genuinely felt that it's what's gonna allow me to expand as a person during that time. A lot of what there was a phase in my life where I had a community around me that just cheered for me and just believed in me. And also that's one of the biggest I feel like that's one of the biggest determinants of how I ended up being the way I am right now. But anyway, that's for another conversation later. But then it evolved into trips in other places of the Philippines. I recall my very first trip outside of the Philippines was when I was 14, when I joined the World Youth Day in Italy. So I was there, and that's, I would say, the very first time I felt like, oh, this is my Disneyland. I just love how mature, how ancient Rome is, and I feel that that's because of art. I really, seeing cobbled streets and all those like old pieces of architecture, all those ruins that, just showed us how old and how young we are as compared to all the wisdom of the world. It just made me feel like I need to see more of this. So that's the first time it happened for me. And since then, a big part of me has always wanted to travel the world. And I have, fun fact, actually have a mole in my feet. You know how Filipinos
yes.
always say if you have a mole sa dapa-dapa mo, lagawan.
Lagawan.
You tend to travel the world if you have a mole in that part of your feet. So I have that. So that's why my family will always say, amo na siya because she has that mole in her feet. So anyway, that was the first time, high school, and then college, it was the same thing. It's always like whether I can travel because I needed to travel or because I want to, but I always end up getting to places because of that. Like I would be part of conferences or, a leadership program, and it's every time I come home, it's like I always take a big part. I always take a big part of that culture and that sense of community with me. And it's like, and I'm a Gemini, so I like to be around people. And I'm an air sign, so I could be very random and I could be a free spirit. So I mean, it's something that I know feels natural for me.
Yeah.
So it's not even something that I really work so hard towards, because it just feels like, oh, I was born for this. Not from a place of confidence, but it's like it's even from a place of just playfulness. And I could tell you there's even more stories about that.
Yes. Speaking of, I think we're going for that story.
Yeah.
So speaking of playfulness, I think just because it's very natural for you to actually be part of these programs, because obviously it sometimes come with like your competencies in school, in academics, right? And I think it's going to be the same when you had your career. So there's this opportunity also for you to travel eventually for work. But I think eventually, just because we're exposed to all of these opportunities, it became natural, but at the same time, we're so conscious of its availability around us that it feels like it's so easy. And correct me if I'm wrong, even when applying for these programs, I think our conversion rate, right? It doesn't really hurt if we're not accepted or if you make it. Unlike other people who would apply and would say that maybe that's too much, I wouldn't be able to make it. Yeah. Us, I think we're just gonna try our luck.
Yeah.
And if we make it, then we do, and it's good. If not, then no.
I think that's the beauty of being in a third world country. I mean, for me, the beauty of living in the Philippines and like not having everything that we need. You know, when you're in another country like the US, the Europe, you go to school, then you have student loans available for you to go to college. Then you could go to an Ivy League university if you want to get a master's or a doctorate degree elsewhere. You could always apply for that. And the government would often, you know, most often than not, and well, definitely the government will, you have a lot of options for that. Here in the Philippines, we have to find out first. I mean, we have to look harder. We don't have anything available for us. And that also means we can relax a bit more because it's like, I mean, if I'm gonna make it, then it's amazing. If not, I mean, nothing. I mean, I didn't really lose anything at all. I mean, so I mean, I recall a lot of this. Okay, I think this is what you were referring to. One of the best one of the best communities I've been part of is Singularity University, which is a school inside NASA.
Okay.
And when I applied, speaking of serendipity, I learned about it in a random trip to the beach. Literally, I was super stressed at work. I went to the airport, booked a flight just with my office bag, booked a flight to Boracay, bought swimwear already in Boracay, just for hotel. And then in a random, in just one of those random afternoons, I met a friend, and my friend told me about how a lot of the people that he looks up to are actually part of a community called the Singularity University in San Francisco, in Silicon Valley. And I ended up Googling about it and geeking out about it. And I was like, one of my biggest goals in life is to just have my picture taken in front of it as a visitor. Like I wasn't even thinking about being part of the alumni network. I was just thinking about, I just want to visit this school because this school is super awesome. So for context, Singularity University is a school inside NASA, like inside NASA Research Park. And back then it was super cool because it's in front of a hangar, and it's really inside. It's like you can really geek out as much as you like when you're there. And then the programs are so expensive. And most of the time, their executive programs are by, tens of thousands of dollars. And it's like during that time, it was like I was from a totally different industry. I was from a very traditional industry. It's like I did not even expect that I would have an opportunity to be part of the community. And then at one point, in a very interesting phase of my life, I prayed. And the thing about me is, weird things happen when I pray a certain way. Like when I pray to God I couldn't explain it, but when I pray a certain way, the answers just come so swiftly.
Pero sorry to cut you, pero do you also feel like when you apply or when you have, when you put a lot of intention to it, like a part of you already knows you're gonna get it? Did you ever have that feeling as well? Or you have that doubt, but at one point you feel like...
I feel like I don't focus on that. Like when I apply, it's more I focus on what I'm being drawn towards. If I'm drawn to apply, I'll focus on that feeling that I want to apply to this opportunity now. Mm-hmm. It doesn't really matter whether I get it or not. Okay. And I think that's the reason why I've been successful most of the time, because of the lack of attachment.
Okay, that's
I feel and because I'm not attached to it, I'm able to focus on the joy. I was able to focus on just that playful energy. I don't care. I'll just apply. I mean, if I make it here, exactly that's what I was even saying when I was. And that was also super interesting because. Okay, I've been feeling that I should apply. I found out about it on the last day to apply. So I prayed before I slept around 9 p.m. and I said, Lord, I want you to send me an answer, and I want you I want to see it the moment I open my eyes tomorrow. Mm-hmm. So that's basically how I prayed during that time. Yeah. And then the next day when I woke up, I saw a notification saying, it's the last day to apply to the Singularity University's Impact Fellows program. And I felt that was the sign I needed. So when I actually forgot, the interesting part is I actually forgot to apply. The deadline was 7 a.m. the next day, which was a Saturday. I fell asleep because Fridays are really difficult days for me. I was super busy. I fell asleep. But the next day I woke up at 5 a.m. Mm-hmm. So waking up at 5 a.m. without an alarm when the deadline for it was 7 a.m. really felt like a big sign for me. So I ended up just meditating, and then I ask God. Like, I think that's also why, because I feel like in everything I do, it's kind of like I always communicate with God, like, okay, show me how it's gonna come through. And then I just ended up putting together something in 2 hours and sent it. And 10 days after, I was given an invite to come to the US for the first time. And during that time, I have to be I was required to be in the US in 20 days. I didn't have a US visa. So that was another miracle too, but I'm going to stop for now.
Yeah, I think that's the very picture of like manifestation.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I remember a mentor mentioning that success, however you guys define it, is contagious. So if we happen to experience, let's say, for example, we applied and we made it, we feel like, I can always do this, I can always try again.
Yeah.
And the chances of us getting accepted is, of course, higher as compared to those people who are not trying, right? But aside from that, I just wanted to emphasize what you mentioned about you're not really focusing about like the end result, but the process, because it's true. Like me, I had a season wherein we have a go-to organizations or pages wherein we can actually see all of these opportunities, right? I remember a season.
I don't know this. Maybe you could tell me about this.
No, I think yours, just because you're in most circles where different people
okay.
represents opportunities, right? It's the same for us. It's just that it just so happened that these people started to create a platform wherein they can put in the call for applications. And I remember having a season wherein I would just randomly apply where I feel fit, but I don't know if I'm going to be accepted. But the thought of probably getting a result anytime soon and maybe I'm gonna make it is such a happy thought. It is something that actually drives me and kinda already give me the things to be happy about, because you would often say that, oh, maybe I'm not going to be available for this month because maybe I'm going to make it to the program. A lot of it is also manifestation, but at the same time, it's actually that very act that tricks the brain that you feel like you've claimed it already, that it is yours.
Yeah, come to think of it, while you were sharing that, I realized that all those times I messed up was, like, those instances where I messed up were actually times where I was focused so much on controlling the outcome of something. So, yeah.
That's one. I agree with that. But here's another thing that I've noticed. If I'm trying to over-impress an application, I came to a point wherein I would say, like, I was so genuine with how I responded to like the essays. And it was when I got accepted, and unlike those that I feel like I overemphasize like my achievements. So those are the things that I would often say to like the younger people who would want like advice on how to apply to this programs as well. So your favorite program was that with the Singularity University?
Yeah, it was definitely one of the coolest ones. Everything, I appreciate all the programs that I've been part of. A lot of them are super cool. But that one is just so different in the sense that I felt like the industry I was from was kind of like an unlikely industry to be there, because I was from the real estate industry, and then here I'm finding myself in the company of NASA astronauts, or like Disney animators, or like inventors of all these like really cool space stuff, and I'm just there witnessing all of it. So it made me just see. Situations like that could just make you see how everything is just so possible, and that there's so much ways to expand as a person. It just makes you think that, the beauty of being in circles like this, it just makes you feel that energy of being limitless. But then again, it still has to be refined, but it's still like that's a very good starting point to get to a better place, I would say.
So that's one of the serendipitous experiences that you have. But is there anything else that you wanted to share under that same category?
Well, it's interesting because, again, like I said earlier, everything, things like crazy and interesting things always happen when I pray. Like, right, something happens, the first thing that I ask myself is, what was the last thing I prayed for? So one time I was when I was in corporate, one of the things that happened to me was I wanted there was a part of me that wanted to focus on okay, there's a better story. 2013, I was in the middle of transitioning from my last job, also in sales, to something that I thought would give me more sense of purpose. So I quit my job. I traveled. It was a 3 month phase, and then but there's a part of me. I read a lot of books, and then one of the books that I stumbled upon was Florence Scovel Shinn's The Game of Life and How to Play It. And there was one affirmation there that says something that said like it said something about your divine genius being expressed. Like I want the divine genius in me to live in me, or like something like that. And then I recall myself just writing that down on a piece of paper every single day, and without realizing that it was almost a year since I prayed to this particular saint. So for a lot of people who are close to me, they know that I'm a devotee of Padre Pio, and I met him at a very, very low phase of my life. I'm not gonna tell you.
That's
what
for another
that phase
episode.
Exactly. That's for another episode. Maybe for women who are recovering from a divorce or a really bad relationship. But anyway, it was a really in the dark phase of my life. And my best friends took me to Eastwood, and then there's a chapel. There's a church there that was built for him, where there's a replica of his body. I mean his tomb. And then they took me there, and I said, "Well, I don't know who you are, but they said you're the real deal. So if it's true that you're that powerful, I'm gonna give you a year to fix my life." So, and the thing about me is like I always say that. I mean, it's like I say that playfully. But at the same time, it's like I know that they just want the best. Like, I have this like really weird relationships with God and my saints. It's just like a very close relationship where I just don't have any boundaries with them, and they'll still love me.
I think as you should, yes.
So I everything since that prayer has been super magical. But then towards the when I was nearing the end of that 1 year period, I ended up in okay. I think this is the part. I ended up in a dating app. Not because I created a profile, but because somebody close to me who knows my email and my details created an account for me. To cut the story short, I was only there for a day, but I met a guy, we became friends, and then he introduced me to a conference by the beach. It's a tech conference. And again, I was from a totally traditional industry. And they ended up meeting a lot of people there, and I'm naturally a very friendly person. So I ended up meeting people, meeting somebody who ended up to be my mentor, who ended up introducing me to the people who became my spiritual community. So when I was there, I didn't have plans, didn't know what's gonna come next, because I was in this 3 month sabbatical, and I didn't know what I was gonna do. And all of a sudden, one thing happened after the another. I ended up manifesting an opportunity. I'm manifesting an opportunity to work in Manila. And I recall in my mind, I was like, I know I came from the real estate industry, but the Super Typhoon Yolanda just happened. I wish that I could find something in a place that would allow me to help. Would allow me to help people that got hit by the Super Typhoon, or that would allow me to help, to do something that's gonna bring impact to where it's needed. So I ended up manifesting an opportunity to help places. I mean, to help be in, to experience philanthropy by, being part of that endeavor to help rebuild areas that got hit by the Super Typhoon. So for me, that was super serendipitous, not just because it's something like, it's like, we often say that things are magical because they just happen in front of us, but actually the biggest takeaway for me was we always create our life, right? We're the ones creating our life. And whether we like it or not, everything that's happening to us is our own making. And
we attract them.
And if people would say that it's difficult for a lot of people who are not experiencing the best of things, like it's if your life is currently difficult, or if you're not really if things aren't ideal, it's so difficult to think that I was the one who did this to myself. But for me, I've reached a point in my life where I felt like, how do I know? I mean, if I ask myself, how do I know that this is the experience that I'm meant to have? It's simple. It's the experience I'm having right now. So anyway, I'm gonna stop there now. But yeah, I mean, that's the. I'm not even gonna say that's the gist. I will stop for now, so you could ask your next question.
Madam, we're 20 minutes in, and okay, my key takeaway so far include that to answer the question how you manage to see the world free, right? You definitely capitalize on your strengths. Like growing up, you were able to use your academic involvement to be able to see places. But at the same time, you also leveraged on the networks that you have made in your career. But I think it's important to note that it wasn't just because you meet these people with the intent to get these opportunities. I feel like there was really like a shared value and nurturing of the relationship for you to be able to attract those, right? And the third one is I've been getting a lot of the intention in all of those opportunities that you got, that okay, we all know that okay, there is this like application, for example, but you also prayed for them, and at the same time, the bare minimum, which is to apply, you were able to do it. But there are a lot of underlying motivations for you to be able to do that. Say, for example, you also believe that for you to be able to get it, you kind of believe that your very scenario or your very situation at the moment will actually guide you to completing or achieving that very application, for example. So we were saying that, oh, it's not normal for you to wake up at 5 a.m. from a very stressful Friday, right? But it's like the world, you know, giving you that, reminding you or giving you that, ano ba? It's like the world helping you accomplish it. And that's, I think I'm also getting a lot of like you claiming that this opportunity was really meant for you. Maybe not now. Sometimes you were saying that it takes a year for something to like reveal itself, or for that opportunity to reveal itself. I'm gonna go for the lighter questions for now. I wanted to, just for the viewers to also know what we meant by this phase wherein you really dedicated a lot of your time and resources and energy to see places. Can you name your favorite countries so far that you've been to?
I would definitely say Japan, Italy, and Austria, specifically Vienna.
Okay.
And I like it for many reasons, but I think one thing that's a unifying element among the three is culture. There's just something ancient about all of them. Japan is, of course, it's in the Orient. It has, I love it for its temples. I just love to see anything that has, you know, a piece of history in it, regardless of the country. It's always something that's special for me. But there's something about how everything in Japan is so intentional, how clean the streets are, how precise the lines in the architectures of the temples, and how, you know, I mean, there's just something, it feels like, for me, Japan feels like a different dimension. Italy is very old, and it's like I geek out a lot on Roman and Greek mythology when I was in high school. So when I went there for the first time, it really felt like Disneyland for me, and even until now I feel the same way every time I'm there. Vienna feels like a cleaner version of Paris. So, and I just love how the sky is like a perfect backdrop for its buildings in the summer. So it's a very romantic place. I wouldn't mind living there.
Okay, speaking of romantic, no. Actually, I just wanted you to further tell me about, this is true to me, and I'd like to assume that it can be true to you, that a lot of our favorite experiences, or even places that we've been to, a lot of what influenced the label of it being our favorite was influenced by the people that we've met or people that we've shared the experience with in those places. Do you agree? And if you do, can you give more examples?
I love it. Thank you for that question. Now I'm wondering how I'm going to answer that in a very safe way.
This is a safe space.
Well, okay. I would say my favorite. Okay. Now that you said that, I realize that it's actually super interesting. I would have to agree. Japan, for example, I was there for work, but I had a weekend where I didn't have to do anything. And randomly, I met a friend who's also a global shaper. I found out that she's also in the area. We ended up going to a random trip to Mount Fuji. So I was there we were the same. She was a single mom. She was a single mom as well. We were listening to, that was the first time I got exposed to all the Lana Del Rey songs, and which who ended up to be one of my favorite artists. And then there's something about not knowing where to go that makes, and then being introduced to something new, like when you travel with somebody. I mean, in general I like to travel alone, but when you travel with somebody, there are things you wouldn't even think about experiencing that you'd end up doing because of that other person. So we ended up going to this really traditional ryokan with an onsen, the traditional Japanese house with a bath inside, they call it an onsen, with a view to Mount Fuji, and it's super beautiful. Hawaii was really good because I traveled randomly. Interestingly, both of them I was also astrologically approved. My astrologer was like, this is actually a very good time for you to be in Japan. It's if you're going to manifest this and this in your life. When I was in Hawaii, I was there for my birthday because it felt like also one of the best places to be in for the day of my birthday, according to my astrologer. I don't solely travel based on that, but it was just one of those few occasions where it was the perfect time to go there. And true enough, when I was there, I ended up that a friend I met in San Francisco was also there with another friend, and we ended up spending the holiday together. Again, there's also Europe, which is a very charming place. I mean, which is a very charming region, just because of the wealth of experience that you could have when you're in that place. And unlike the Philippines, where we are used to like having house help, or like we're used to not doing any chores, we're not used to walking here in the Philippines. One of the things that really stood out the most for me when I was in Europe was people wanting to walk around. It's like sometimes my friends would message me, do you wanna go out? Do you go out where? Like, to take a walk. It's like, why would you take a walk? So like that's one of the things that I noticed. And I noticed that people there really like to serve. It's like, they I don't know, like, it's not like acts of service or in their love language, but because of the culture and because of how things are, they generally like to do things for people. So whether it's cooking for people, or like taking their friends out on a trip. Like right now, when we look at the rivers, we look at them as like bodies of water that we could either just look at, or like, most of the time I see Iloilo River, but I've never been on the Iloilo River. But one time I was in Switzerland, and I realized that a lot of people actually just bring an inflatable, what do you call that? One of those inflatable boats, and you could just hop on that and be taken by the current to another part of Switzerland, and it's like something super normal for them. So I guess that's one of the, and I wouldn't know that if I don't have friends in those places. And I think that's also the beauty of being part of different communities, because I had a phase in my life where I'd literally hop on a plane, I'd be in a country, and I literally message the community, I'm in this country, who's here, who's available to meet.
Yeah.
And there was I would say the ultimate manifestation of that was when I took over 100 people to a salsa night in Switzerland. But that's for another topic.
I think our appreciation not only is about like the people that we've shared the experience with, but at the same time how unique the experience is. But when I even say unique, it's not like extravagant. Mm-hmm. It's like it's magical, but probably it is something that is not true to us, just because like living in the Philippines, for example. And you were right by saying that I appreciate walking so much, but not just walking. It surprises me that like one of my favorite experiences when I was also in Europe was walking a dog. And it's funny because you get to walk a dog like twice a day. And I was even telling them that, you know what, in the Philippines, I even hardly have the time to go to the toilet or eat my lunch outside of my office. And here comes European who
they do it
would walk
twice.
their dogs twice a day.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's true that I know it's more of like a stereotype when they associate like French people about the work-life balance. That if it's work, it's work. If it's outside of work, there's even a law that supports that you're not supposed to be working if it's not your time of work. And again, it's very cultural, and it's just awakening to be able to see that, you know what, there's actually that, it could actually work for people to have a very decent life. But obviously, there's a lot of factors to affect it, like the economy, for example, where you are in your life, your priorities, and many things. But yeah, it is also the availability of these new experiences. They don't have to be magical, but just because it's not something that we get to experience in the Philippines often, that it becomes such a wonderful experience, making these countries and this experience memorable to us. Okay, and I know what you're thinking next, but I'm not gonna go there just yet. But those are like happy thoughts to remember. And knowing you as a person, I know for a fact that not everything in the past decade are beautiful stories to tell, right? I also wanted to hear if you have what is that worst experience that you have from traveling, for example, or for being so, always, meeting a lot of people. I don't think we get to meet the nice people all the time, but should you have that experience, how does it look like?
Oh, so I like to travel. By now, I've already established that I'm a very random person, and I could take random trips without planning about it, totally without an itinerary. One time, I found myself hopping on a train to the south of Italy on a Sunday after Googling the available schedules, both for the train and the bus, like on a daily basis. So, I mean, the daily schedules, I mean. So, I hopped on a plane. I wanted to visit Padre Pio. I wanted to visit the actual place. I didn't know that on a Sunday, the trips that are in the that are in the official schedules are actually for weekdays.
Okay.
So on Mondays to Saturdays, on Sundays it's totally different. Like say if normally those trips happen every hour, on a Sunday maybe just 2 times a day. I didn't know that, so I hopped on a train, went there with just my phone and a bag, and I didn't know that there are places in Italy, there are parts of Italy that's just like the Philippines where you don't really have much mobile signal. I was running on 3G. I was like, what? There's 3G here? And at one point, I don't even have phone signals. And then in between that trip, there's a stopover. And the stopover is in a place called Foggia. And I was there and I was super excited, and I found myself just walking around, and I was like, oh, this is such a nice place, this is such a cute place. And then I realized I wasn't seeing a lot of women around, and that it wasn't until I felt like somebody was following me that I realized I had to hurry up and go back to the bus station, where I ended up buying a bus ticket back to Rome. And according to the person, that was the last ticket for that day. Had I not bought that, I would not have made it to Rome in time for my train that's gonna take me to Austria. But anyway, that's not where the story ends. So I was there. I thought I was like, oh, okay. I had a sketchy guy. There was a sketchy guy behind me, but that was it. 3 years after that, in a conference, like some of the shapers was like, oh, so you went there and you went there alone, and they didn't tell me why, but they had like an interesting look on their face. And then 2 years after, in another program in San Francisco, I have a cohort mate who's an Italian, and we were in a session, and I was asking, oh, you know what? I went to this place and I had to stop over here, and I wondered why some of my friends were like concerned that I went there alone. And apparently, it's in a place that was not really a very safe place to be in during that time. And I smiled and I shook my head just because it's like sometimes like I get myself in situations like that. I'm just happy that I'm lucky that I'm able to, I'm always safe. But it also reminded me how I need to also like change a bit, especially if I start traveling with my daughter.
Yes, but would you say that it really goes with age as well? I mean, that time, or I think when we were younger, we would.
I don't think so. I think if I'm traveling alone, I'll still be the same.
You'll still be the same adventurous person that you are.
I will not be this. I will not be here if I'm not. If I won't travel like that.
I agree. Okay, I keep hearing like your fascination towards like Italy as a country and Italian as people, but I think it's just right for me to ask because to begin with, you're single, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. This just came to mind. If you were to choose like a nationality, okay, not that. Okay, I'm gonna change my question. Is it safe to say that with your exposure to a lot of nationalities, you've expanded your options or preference when it comes to men?
I definitely am very open in general. Back then I had certain beliefs about why I wouldn't be with a Filipino after everything that I've been through. But then again, I realized that those were just, that was me coming from fear. So back then when I thought, oh, I don't want this nationality, I'm more attracted to these type of men. Right now, I can really say that I'm open to to men of, I'm open to men of many cultures, of any culture.
Of many culture.
Of many cultures, because they could have.
Yeah, I know. Okay. If one should go, which one would go? Like Italian, German, or Swiss? You can like if you wanted to let go one of them, you can tell me why. So I'll have the context.
I guess I'm so sorry to my German friends. Okay, the only reason I'm saying that is because of the temperament. I feel like I'm a very warm person. We're the Latinos of Asia.
Yes.
We're a very warm culture, and well, actually, like a lot of my German friends are pretty cool, but I'm just speaking from. This is such a difficult question to answer.
This is my favorite question to ask.
Okay.
You can just
There has
speak
to be
from
a
experience,
disclaimer. Okay. On the surface, Germans, it feels like I'm going to answer German just because of how they're the most serious. Swiss, there's the German speaking side, the French speaking side, and the Italian speaking side. So that's the reason why I chose German first. But I'm so sorry, most of my German friends are really nice. They're really fun.
But can I just comment? But don't you also feel, again, it really depends on where you're coming from. And just because you have like other preferred options, right? But you were right by saying that culturally, like they could be very direct to the point, right? But just by experience, I feel like it also complements the contrast of, Filipinos who are naturally like people pleasers. And here comes people who can actually like directly tell you how they truly feel.
Yeah. To be fair though, like I said, I love all my German friends, but I also have experiences where, and just like any culture, just like any kind of country, there's also people who are not as aware of themselves that they tend to communicate the way they do. So I was caught in a situation where I felt like I was one of the items that need to be ticked in the checkbox. Like I had an interesting conversation I had an interesting, phase where I was talking with a guy, and it's like, and it could be just him, or it could be just a subset of that population where
you don't want to generalize.
Just because the way they think about life is, they think about life in a very driven I mean, from a place of wanting to achieve certain things, they have to be structured, they have to be disciplined. You know, every milestone of their lives have to be hit at a certain point. So it's like, oh, I've ticked this box, I've ticked the career, I've ticked this
So
aspect.
it's just so happened that it's not compatible with your personality or preference.
I feel like ultimately it's the compatibility with the with the culture, but I believe that these things we can always like blur these boundaries, not in a bad way, but once we have learned how to really dance with the other culture, because it's possible for you to be from that country but still know how to
Open yourselves to.
open yourself or like interact with them in a way that they could understand more. And I think a lot of that work really has to come from ourselves, because sometimes we react a certain way because of our own filters, like the way we see things. Like most of the time, they didn't know that you're gonna be hurt because they said something, but because I'm a Filipino and where we're from, we normally get hurt when you say these kinds of things to us. So, but yeah.
Yeah,
So,
it's meeting halfway, understanding each other's language.
Travel really helped us become more accepting and become more open that there are different
agree.
ways for things to happen.
So that's the German you're kicking out first. And what's next? Swiss?
Okay.
Italian?
Can I just say, okay, I don't like the word kicking out. So maybe the question
You're
should
still
be,
opening
I'll
yourselves.
give you-
Okay,
I'll give
German
you
audience.
3 options. What's the best option?
Okay.
I don't know. Okay, sige. I love Italians because I really believe I was Italian in a past life.
Okay.
I really I find myself when I first went to Italy, I was like, I find myself singing all the Italian songs. I feel like I could be there and just hug every Italian I meet just because they talk like me. The only thing I needed to do was to do the hand gestures and I feel Italian. Yeah. So, I mean,
I kind of
there's
agree.
something about their randomness, their love for rest and their love for happy, to be to just find joy in everything that feels so natural for me. That's something that I want to constantly have in my life.
And contrary to, like, say, just for the sake of illustration, like German people, I think Italians are very expressive. And it complements that very need that you wanted, like, you wanted you wanted the person to like to dance with your own culture as well, and literally dance. I mean, they're very rich with what you're very interested
Literally
in.
dance, yeah.
Yes.
But I think like generally all throughout Europe, people like to dance. Like
Okay.
you always see social dancing in every, in a certain corner within a certain region. So
Why not Swiss though? What's your take on the Swiss?
you're asking me like I've dated people there.
I'm just affirming that yes.
No.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, this is my
Okay, the association for Swiss people oftentimes are very, very diplomat, very scientist, very formal people. Don't you think so?
No, I didn't think.
At least based on my experience, like the people that I know that are coming from Switzerland, they have that persona.
Well, I feel like Switzerland is a melting pot of different
Yes,
cultures,
it is.
really. Because if you look at them geographically, they're in the right smack
That's
in the middle
right.
of all these different countries. So that's why it's difficult for me to really like answer what Swiss men are, because most of the time they're different types of men already, just because they're just it's very diverse. So
What are your thoughts about like Filipinas opting European people over Filipinos as partners?
I don't know if it's a thing.
Okay.
I don't know if it's a thing. It's not like, well, personally, I don't think that it's something that a lot of us think about, because it's not something that's available to us. You know how you don't really think about stuff when it's not in your immediate environment. So I'm not sure if it's something that we think about, to be honest. But maybe those who think about it are those that are probably have access to it. So for those who have access to it, I feel like I'm not sure if it's really something that we think about, but normally, probably we think about it when we're there and we meet somebody. And I guess there's a flaw to that, and that's not realizing that it's not the culture, it's not the place, but it's actually what you want in a man. Because the problem with romanticizing a certain culture is you tend to focus so much on that particular, I want to be with this kind of man, that you're forgetting that the very first thing you need to sort out is what exactly does a perfect relationship look like for you. Because for all you know, the perfect guy is just in the Philippines, and you're not realizing that because you're so focused on I want it to be a certain way. And then the problem with the really unhealthy attachment styles, which a lot of people don't notice, is that the moment you start getting drawn to somebody, you forget everything. You just look at you just imagine all the beautiful things that could happen, and then you're forgetting that it's about you, not the other person.
Now that we're talking about like, everything starting from you, I've been meaning to ask this question because again, I've seen, you were storytelling a lot about all of these phases of your life. And I'm so happy to be part of those group chats, exclusive group chats and screenshots. But no. This is a safe one. Okay. I'm interested to know like how does your will of life look like for you at this age right now?
I would say that this is a phase of my life where I believe things can be easy.
I like that.
And that's the reason. And the reason for that is because for the longest time, I really believed in the idea that I have to work hard for me to achieve what I want to achieve. And that's how most of us are really conditioned, right? When at a very young age, you're sent to an institution where you need to constantly take exams and be judged for your capability based on how high you score in that exam. Society is really setting us up for failure. And especially honor system. And I'm saying that as somebody who stopped who's finished on top of the class since I was a young girl. The only thing I knew to do was to constantly finish first in a class of over 300 students. And while it helped shape who I am today, there was honestly a lot of things I needed to heal from that. Specifically, that part of me who wanted to be like the perfectionist in me. I would often say I'm a recovering perfectionist. And I'm a control freak. I didn't know I was a control freak. I thought I was a free spirit who wanted to travel the world without any plans. But I was actually a control freak. And it wasn't until I realized how bad I felt when things I wanted to happen didn't happen a certain way, that I realized all the times I prayed to God about me letting go of things weren't actually enough. It was just the tip of the iceberg. It's just like, self-love. We often say, I want to love myself. Like, this is a period where I'm like, everything is just about self-love right now. But one thing that I realize these days is how much the meaning of that word got diluted because we're using it so much without realizing what that truly is. So I am currently at the space in my life where I believe things can be easy for me, where I believe I deserve to be taken care of because I'm used to taking care of everybody else. And where I believe there's always like something I could be grateful for. And I often say I'm a very grateful person, but to be genuinely grateful about something, even when things are so difficult, is one of the biggest gifts of this phase.
Contrary to what like the society expects, like for a high functional woman like you are, it actually is a big deal that we see you having such priorities right now. Like whenever we meet like common friends, they would say, "Oh, what is Hera doing now?" and stuff like that. How come she's not showing up? How come she's not joining us in this and that? But I kind of like resonate the need for such phase, having to go through like everything that you've experienced. Like you've pursued career, you've pursued other passions to begin with, and even like the entrepreneurial journey that you have. And some people would even, or you yourself would even call this very phase like you are in your hermit era. Can you tell us more about that?
Okay, I love that you shared that. It was actually it's related to what I shared earlier about where I'm currently at, where I came from all my life until now, until this phase, has been a pattern of me chasing one goal after another, chasing one milestone, one achievement after the other. And when I said that I was a control freak, I didn't realize how much of a control freak I was until I woke up to the reality that every single thing of my life I actually planned out. I mean, well, I didn't plan out the marriage, but I've always the marriage that eventually failed. But I knew that in my mind, I don't care how that's gonna look like. It's like I have a perfect image of what that's gonna look like. And if you're gonna look at it, it's not really a bad thing to have because it's something that we all need to. Yeah, it's some the ability to imagine that perfect the perfect manifestation of a reality it's a skill. It's an important skill to have, but there was a part of me that was chasing so much that was trying to make it happen, but the danger to that is when the lens you're looking at life from isn't as refined or isn't the right one for you. You'll end up being you'll end up running around in circles, manifesting one thing manifesting one wrong thing after the other. And I'm saying that realizing that like after realizing that a lot of things manifested the way they did because of the person that I was during that point in my life. I'm not saying they're the wrong things I shouldn't have manifested, but when you're manifesting when you're trying to manifest love, for example, the most important thing that you need to do is really understand what love means for you so that you could manifest the right person for that kind of love. If you want to manifest a prosperous life, you have to really understand what that looks like for you, or you'll end up manifesting the wrong career that you thought is going to give you that, or trying to build a business that you thought is going to give you that. And I'm speaking from my own perspective experience, and then you'll end up just reliving the pattern until you realize that maybe happiness could look a certain way. Maybe happiness isn't what I think happiness is back in that phase of my life. Yeah. So I had to stop because I reached a point in my life where I felt like everything I knew how to manifest wasn't working anymore. Everything I knew about manifesting and about, back then I was just so confident that I could just whip everything. I could just whip up everything in any like one magic after the another. I could just, randomly manifest stuff. Like if I say things are gonna happen, it's gonna happen. If I put my mind into something, I'm gonna achieve that. If I say I'm gonna be successful in this area of my life, I'm gonna be successful in that area of my life. And that has been how it's like for me until things didn't manifest the way I wanted them to. And at first, there was like a big period of resistance. I kept pushing because I felt like, no, I don't quit. I'm not a quitter. I feel that there's, I only fail if I quit. You know that saying, we only fail if we quit. Of course, there's truth to that. But at the same time, there's also wisdom in knowing when that's true and when that's true and when it's not. So at one point, I had to I'm so big at everything. I tend to be like, I could really be, for example, subliminals or affirmations. I do affirmations. I had a phase where I was into affirmations. I was into subliminals. All the music that I listened to, I would embed subliminals and listen to them daily. Going back, subliminals. Okay, so people always talk about manifestation. I am crazy for manifestation. I feel like I tried everything, and that's the reason why I was so confident about it, because I always believe that I'm a powerful manifester. But when a big part of your identity relies so heavily on that capability to manifest, and all of a sudden you're not manifesting things, that's a very big blow. And like you tend to question what is wrong about the things that I'm doing and why are things not manifesting. And a big part of that, there was a big period of questioning myself. It's like, it's so interesting because from a very confident person, I ended up questioning myself so much. And I wondered what things, if there are things that I did wrong. And at one point, you know, that's the thing, eh? When you start to manifest something, and interestingly, that was at the period of my life where I was consciously manifesting something beautiful, something that's better than before. And I would say that I was at the period in my life, I was trying to manifest something that was genuinely meaningful for me. Like, it's like, if I'm gonna manifest a beautiful new chapter, how is it gonna look like? But the interesting thing about manifesting is the moment you ask for something huge, or the moment that you genuinely desire something that's gonna turn your life around in a beautiful way, God, you have to be to watch out for it, because God will send you all the stuff you need to to melt all those blocks away. It's just like detox. If you want your digestive system to work properly, you have to go on a 21 to 30-day detox, because you have to reset, you have to remove all the gunk, so your body could do what it needs to do. And it's the same thing with manifestation. The moment you ask for something, and especially if you ask for something very meaningful and something very major, the universe will send you all the clues that's so that you could see how you're currently blocking that, or all the clues to show you what needs to get out of you, what needs to be out of your way, so that you could be able to receive and hold the vision of what you're trying to manifest. So it's like, we always say, I want to have all this, I want to have all this, but I realized that one thing that I haven't asked myself is, am I the right person to hold this vision? Am I the right person to manifest this kind of life? What do I need to be for me to be able to really appreciate it when it finally lands in front of my doorstep? So
interesting, because I think we also started with the emphasis on like intention and manifestation. Like, you grew up being able to get all of those opportunities because the intent was there, the manifestation was there. Now I'm curious, at this age and having to realize everything, what's in your manifestation list like now? What is it that you're manifesting at this point in your life?
Oh, I'm definitely manifesting a beautiful relationship.
Nice. I love that you said it yourself.
Yes.
I thought you're gonna hold up, because I'm gonna
not.
get back to you. Like, manifestation doesn't sound like, you're holding it back, right? So I like that you said it yourself.
Yeah.
Okay. We can talk about dating next.
I guess I am at the phase where I am in my late 30s right now, and my goal is to manifest. I mean, everybody says this nowadays. I want to manifest my best version. But I feel like I want to manifest the happiest, I was saying the most joyful life I could ever have. And the reason for that is because it's easy for us to chase wealth. It's easy for us to chase, success. Definitely a joyful life for me would have success in it, would have wealth in it, will have love in it. But it's always like, now I'm tired of learning from, I believe there's two ways we could learn from life. We could learn from a place of pain, or we could learn from a place of joy. So it's like, how do I manifest this life from a place of joy? Because I'm freaking tired of learning lessons the hard way. And I think that stops the moment you realize that. When you realize that I don't have to keep pushing, I don't have to keep, being in pain, or like being, finding things difficult. And I mean, if we want things to be difficult, it's always going to be difficult. And right now, it's like my mantra is, everything is just easy. And we'll see. I'm seeing signs of it. So
Yeah, but I'm honestly getting what you meant by that very picture of you being joyful, being happy. But
do you feel that in me?
yes, thanks for sharing the energy. Okay, I actually have one last question, which is related to that. We started out talking about like seeing the world free, how we can attract all of these opportunities, and you having all of these manifestations primarily on like relationship.
Relationship?
You did say relationship, your next manifestation.
The one that I want to
Yeah.
manifest. Kasi,
Okay. But just one last thing. Like, I think it's important for people to have that very visual of how that happiness look like. in a very practical or like specific description. I have my version of that, which I often tell people. But I wanted to understand, like, the moment you wake up, how does the day of a beautiful life, of a happy life, look like?
Fine. This is so interesting because I've been thinking of that a lot. I've been thinking about, and it's interesting because it's how does a perfect day look like for you? Kalo. But anyway.
That's your last
okay.
question.
The interesting thing is, one of my favorite meditations is actually that kind of meditation. Like, how would a perfect day look like?
Now I didn't know that it's a meditation.
It could be a meditation. Like, you meditate from the time you woke up. From the time you wake up from your bed. Imagine how it feels like to wake up from that.
I thought it's just like daydreaming, which growing up I've been a fan of.
You could definitely. So you could, yeah, and it's all. I feel like one of the most powerful ways to actually manifest is to think about life from the point of view of your future self, and that is super powerful because you tend to you're not just connecting to who you are from the future, but you're also like able to live that version of you from the future. And also it's definitely in response to what I said, like who do you need to be? What kind of person do you need to be to be able to pull that vision?
And it's nice that you said that, because even in that very process, I would even like call myself out if I'm not being realistic about my imagination of things. Like,
you don't have to be realistic.
but yeah, I mean, it's something that is very doable. Like, it could actually happen.
Your imagination is the only place in the universe where you don't have to control things. So don't judge yourself for being not realistic.
Okay, so now how does a limitless, happy life look like?
Oh my God!
It's too personal.
It's super personal, but okay. I'm not gonna tell you the details, but definitely, if I think about my perfect life, it would involve me waking up in a house that has always been in my head. I have an idea of how that future house will look like. I have an idea of how that future room would look like, and I could see myself definitely waking up, saying thanks, saying a prayer of thanks to God for another day. And then I definitely see myself coming down to the kitchen, seeing my partner already, whether he's standing or sitting down doing his work, and finding myself preparing breakfast for me, my daughter, and our future children. This is so vulnerable, but oh my God, this is such a vulnerable post. And let me think if I'm gonna give you all the details to this vision.
Yeah.
But I would say a big part of that, if there's something that changed between my idea of my life, of the life that I want to have before and the life that I want to have in the future, it's definitely the kind of woman that I am in that vision. I see myself as a woman who actually understands how important it is to serve people around her, not from a place of allowing them to take my power away, but from a place of really joyfully serving, whether it's my children, I'm saying children specifically, or my husband, genuinely, because the idea of serving a good man, the idea of serving, my beautiful children, the idea of serving a community that I believe so much for, that I believe so much in, or the idea of serving, of giving myself to a cause or a business or a purpose that strongly fills me up, isn't something that's gonna take my power away. So I feel like that's the story. That's the biggest lesson of my life for this space. It's like, how do you be independent and still have because like there's this, we always say I want to be an independent woman, right? And I was hyper independent. I was beyond independent. And one thing that I realized is by doing that, I wasn't actually able to receive. I didn't have the power to receive all the beautiful things the universe could give me, because I was focused on giving to everybody. I wasn't, yeah. So
Receiving.
Yeah, I wasn't receiving as much. So I feel like the future life would definitely be like I definitely could see a woman who's able to witness everything around her, learn from everything around her, and just really sit in awe because of all the beautiful things life is
Yeah.
bestowed in her.
Yeah, I had to ask that question because I know for a fact that you're gonna gear towards the idea that it's not what like how the society dictates. Most of the time, you having to experience a lot of things in life, that it's actually a very simple picture to even say that that is your happiest or that is your best self that you have imagined for yourself.
Yeah, I will definitely still be rich. We all need to strive to be wealthy in all aspects.
That's right.
So,
Not only financially,
but I think, but I feel like there's beauty when you're able to achieve that and really understand what that truly means for you. Because you could manifest wealth and not really appreciate that in the best way possible. Or you could manifest wealth and be ultimately happy because of the many ways you could really help yourself, help people you love because of that.
You know, I did manifest that this podcast is going to be so long, but Manal, thank you so much. And I know this allotted time is not sufficient for everything that we can
Thank
talk
you.
about. But yes, so should you guys like this episode, don't forget to like, comment, and share. Go find us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and of course, you can also listen to us on Spotify. And also, we would like to thank We the Curators for sponsoring today's episode. And note guys that we have an ongoing giveaway wherein you can win a My Key Takeaway t-shirt. To be able to participate, all you have to do is comment down below your key takeaways from this episode, and we're gonna announce the winners on the next episode. And we would like to congratulate the winner of our giveaway from the previous episode. Thank you and congratulations! Ta-da!
I wish I knew